working crew he was on. This was taken in 1915. And from left to right was now Big Mike Langan, known as Big Mike. And the next man was my grandfather. Horace Ettinger, they called him in those days. He was a conductor on that. The next fella was Harry Maynard. Harry, when I was a kid, lived in Scotchy's house. He rented Scotchy's house. After the railroad, across from Dottie B. Mint, there was a little gas station and grocery store. He ran that. Next to him is Harry Herman. And next to him, the last one over on the right, is Lee Smith. So to get a little closer view of him, that was Big Mike Langan. That's my grandfather, William Ettinger, Horace Ettinger. The next was Harry Maynard. And there, Harry Herman. And this one here was a fellow known as Lee Smith. That one I don't remember. These pictures, some of them are old, some of them are taken from slides. And in 1915. People in this picture, there was no names or anything, but this is a scene showing the station when I was a kid was in front of the bunkhouse. And this is when they put it there. It was another place in the yard and they moved it to here, and it shows two of the steam engines and the crew and the number of people it took to move it. Now this is another picture taken over in the yard. Of course, on the left to right, I don't know, the man on the right doesn't ring a bell to me, so I'll have to go with Mike Miscellany, Humpty Galbraith, and Walt Potter on a crew over in the yard. Fourth man, I wasn't that familiar with those people. This picture taken over in the yard, I am not familiar. I'm going to have to guess a little. And I believe we got Mike Miscellany on the left. I think it was Willie King next. I'm pretty sure that was Bill King. Tricky Mickey. And I think the next one might be McLean. Of course, everybody recognized W. Herman. And then came my father. But I'm not too positive. Of course, Mike Miscellany, Tricky Mickey, W. Herman, and my father, I am positive of. We take another group at the same time, but they switched around. And I believe we got Mike Kroniski, I think Bill King, I'm pretty sure that's who it is. McLean next. Then we've added Fred Ellis, Tricky Mickey, and Harry Herman. Another one taken. Left to right, Danny Robinson, Ken Herman, and I think the one with the pipe is Donnie Henry, Elektroniski up above. This is a picture of my daughter Lynn waiting for the Black Diamond to arrive at the Clifton Springs station in Clifton Springs. Picture taken at a party they had at Roseland Park. From left to right in the back row was Georgie George and George Pappard, and in the shadow Carl Ragosa. Well, I'm not sure if that was Carl Ragosa or Chet Hyde, one or the other. Might have been Chet Hyde. And then Paul Huxley, and then Charlie Smith, known as Boot Nose Smith, and then Charlie Durant. Down below, the heavyset man, I'm not sure, but in the middle was Russell Barrows. And oh man, an awful of I'm terrible on voices. Time with names today. In the bottom row, the last one on the right. Gosh, he lived on a corner right across from the cemetery on the corner of Shirley Street in Charlottesville and 21. His son was married to the owner of Roseland's daughter. Sorry. This is a picture of what was left of the ice house morning after it burned. Pile of rubble. This is another view of it from a different angle. And is sitting next to my father, but is taken under the Buffalo Bridge, under a bridge in Buffalo Yard. As you go into Buffalo, it's the bridge that goes across. That's when he was on a run to Buffalo. Here's a little dark in this picture. But as you can see, Tricky Mickey on the left, Ragosa, McLean, and Dusty Rhodes. Dusty, McLean, Carl, and Tricky. This is the only picture I have him, but I thought I'd put it in now to show him. This is Mary and Tom Warner, always known as Tom Mix to me. Mary and Tom Warner. This is a picture of Claude Patchen and his wife. He was an engineer, and Patchen lived up on Shirley Street, or what I call Pickle Park. So that would be Claude Patchen and his wife. The picture of Edna and Earl Craig. Earl Craig was yardmaster when I was young, I always remember. So this is Edna and Earl Craig. Picture taken down to my dad's out on the farm. Of course, it's my father, Tricky Mickey, his wife Ella, so Tricky and Ella Henry, and a big tall drink of water up on the end. Up on the end. So my father, Tricky, Ella, and Fred. And at the same time, this is a picture of Jack Parmley and his wife. Jack worked with my father a lot. Picture of Mildred Henry, Don Henry's mother. She worked out of Buffalo most of the time. And that's Mildred Henry. Picture of my father and Fred Ellis. Actually, this is a poor picture in here. Not exactly. This is, I don't know his first name. This is Mosier and his wife from Shortsville. I think Harry Mosier was their son. But Mr. and Mrs. Mosier. This pair over in the Legion, they had some kind of a retirement banquet for somebody. And this is a picture. In the middle is Joe pulling. And on the right is Gladys. Joe and Gladys pulling. And on the left is Joe's brother, Monsignor pulling. Leo pulling. So it would be Leo pulling, Joe pulling, and Gladys. Over in the Legion at a retirement banquet. Starting from the right at the table, Mike Miscellany and his wife, Tricky Mickey, and Art Duty and his wife. Then further down, hidden behind Art Duty was Gladys pulling, Joe pulling, and Father pulling. With his back right in the middle to us was Johnny Boardman, and across from him was Danny Robinson and his wife to his left. Some of these doesn't come out. There's a picture of Redfield, Johnny Kearns. This is Dusty Rhodes' head right in front of me. And way down in the corner is Mrs. Kearns. And with a bright forehead there would be Ed Roll. The rest of them, I don't know who they are. I'm not positive who they are. A few who I know they are. And that first one in the middle there is Ed Roll. And further down to the table, you see Art Duty. And then next to him is his wife. And then Dusty Rhodes. The other two gentlemen are not familiar to me. Now this is a scene taken off the train on the Lehigh Valley Railroad as it went through the mountains of Pennsylvania. Scene, a straight piece of track as it went probably along the Susquehanna River. I'm not sure. Another scene, as you can see, it's in the mountains. In Pennsylvania. Taken in Pennsylvania from the back of the train. This is the Black Diamond as it was going through Pennsylvania. Rounding a curve in Pennsylvania. This is the Black Diamond. Another scene looking towards the bunkhouse and the towel in the yard. It's a scene, of course, the snow doesn't help it out, of a freight coming in the yard from the east, and that's the bunkhouse in the background. My grandfather, probably in between 1910, about 1910, working as a conductor in the yard. This is a crew he was with, and of course we wouldn't have the slightest idea who these people were. So, that's a picture of the crew working in the yard in Manchester. Now this is a picture taken in Manchester Yard. From the left, Tricky Mickey, Jack Parmley, Big Bill Segbers with his cigar, and Fred Ellis. So the only picture I've got of Big Bill Segbers. Always had a cigar in his mouth. That's the four of them. Maybe I could get you a little better. That's Tricky Mickey, Jack Parmley, Bill Sagbers, and Fred Ellis. Picture of from left to right, Johnny Kearns, and I'm pretty sure that's McLean. I keep calling him that, McLean. And then next to him was Gasoline Gus Halderman. And then Joe Pulling, and then Tricky Mickey. So that was Johnny Kearns, McLean, Gasoline Gus Halderman, Roger Halderman, Joe Pulling, and Tricky Mickey. But the engineers and I guess and the firemen had a get-together or just retirement. And I think it was taken in Buffalo. But I'm showing this one just to try to get a couple of people into this picture. Now the reason I'm putting this in here, there's a man here with a suspender, and a man here, the two men and the three men right here are really the ones that I know, that I wanted to get into this picture. So from the left to the right, there's Lester Cotton, Tricky Mickey, and Earl Hulbert. Call him Cy Hulbert. Who that man is, I don't know. But that Alan Hulbert's father, Earl Hulbert, Tricky Mickey, Lester Cotton, and these two I really can't distinguish. I just don't know. Just putting in, just to show people that are no longer around. And we'll get the whole picture first. And up in the back from left to right is Browning Crowe and his wife, and then Kate Fairchild, and Edna Craig, Marie Galbraith, Clarence Fairchild, and Father Wallach. Now between Clarence and Marie is Ruth Fish. And in front of Kate Fairchild is Mrs. King, Willie King's wife. So let me move them over a little and see if I can bring them in. So there you have on the left Browning Crowe and his wife Marion and Kate Fairchild and Mrs. King in front of Kate. We go over a little further. Next to Mrs. King is Edna Craig, and then Marie Galbraith, Ruth Fish, Clarence Fairchild, and Father Wallach. In front of Father is little Kurt Thomas Schultz, Ruth's grandson. Just to show people. Newell Moyer. Newell Mouthy Moyer. Man, could he talk. And then Lynn Fish, then Margaret, his sister Margaret, or Margaret Wright. Of course, that's Mel Maslin, and Ruth Fish. just to kind of show pictures of people that are no longer around. This is a picture of my mother and father, Bill and Mary Ettinger. Another engineer on the Lehigh. Of 4 people that are all gone. From left to right is Francis Henry, Pearl Henry, my father Bill Ettinger, my mother Mary. Now the 2 in the middle are brother and sister. Francis and Pearl are Scotchies, mother and father. Bill Henry's grandmother and grandfather. And the next 2 are my mother and father. Out at used to be the Quail's nest. And to get pictures of these people, I'll go from one side of the table to the other. Now the 4 people along here in a row are Stuart and Genevieve Hawks. Now they used to run the bakery down on the corner where the gas station is and the village mart is now. Then next to them is Jakey Murray. And then comes my mother, Mary Ettinger. And then in the center is Mrs. Brophy. Now that's Francis Brophy, the egg person out there, his mother. And next to them, next is, coming up the table, would be Alice Gilman, Marie Galbraith, and Gladys Pulley. That is taken out of the Quail's nest at a party. People used to have a lot of parties out there where they got together with kind of retirement. Isn't too good of that. It's back at the end of the table is Walt Ellis and his wife and Mr. and Mrs. McLean. I was right with the rest of them in this plane. This is taken down on the farm and my mother and father's at a party. Picture I put in to show who certain people were. Now this, let's start over here. Now this woman here, she doesn't come out too well in this picture. This kid, the left, is Carrie Arshall. Now she used to work for Andy Ryan in his hardware when the hardware store was down next to where the post office burned. Next to her is Hap Sigbers. And behind her is Clara Smith. Now Clara Smith used to work with Andy in the post office, and that's the one Helen really replaced in the post office, was Clara Smith. And then next to her, these 2 here, was Andy Ryan's wife Ella and Mary Chambers. Mary Chambers wound up running a dress shop on Main Street in Shortsville. This was kind of a club that my mother belonged to. And this is the only way I've had to show you some of these people and who they were. Now Carrie Arshall was Catherine O'Donnell's mother. And she lived down here with Catherine and Vince for quite some time. Of course, I was standing up in the back is Edith Turner. And of course, going across in the back is my mother. And further back is Gladys Pulling. And in front of Gladys is my Aunt Pearl. And to the right of both of them is Vince Fogarty's mother. And then would be a Catherine O'Donnell. She was younger, but she was in that group. And going back, this of course is Pearl Henry. And to the left of her is Genevieve Hawks. The woman behind Genevieve, I'm not sure of. It's a hard picture to take because of the background. This, let's start over here. And there is Clyde Redfield and his wife. They lived up on 96 and Engineer. And this one here is Clarence Fairchild's brother, Raymond, and his wife. His wife is on the left of him. And then in front of her is Marge Daly. So you have Marge, Mrs. Fairchild, I believe her name is Catherine, Raymond Fairchild, and then the Redfields. Down at the farm at a party my father had. So it'd be from left to right is my mother, my father, my mother, then Jack Parmley and his wife, and then Mrs. Ellis, and then Elda McIntyre or Elda Henry, and Tricky McIntyre, Tricky and El. He's at the same time, my mother, Jack Parmley's wife, Fred Ellis's wife, and Ella McIntyre, Ella Henry. And together, Jack Parmley, Tricky Mickey, and Fred Ellis. Now in this picture, left to right, we have Danny Robinson, a man by the name of Talbert, Bill Collins, my father, Bill Ettinger, Walt Hayward, and Potter, and Walt Potter. So there we have Danny Robinson, Talbert, Bill Collins, and then Bill Ettinger, Walt Hayward, and Walt Potter. Practically